It appears another fight is brewing between the Aboriginal community and the Tasmanian government. After years of talk, the government is planning to introduce new Aboriginal heritage legislation into Parliament after the winter break. The Aboriginal community says it was promised the bill would give Indigenous Tasmanians more control over their heritage and prevent conflict, such as that seen at the Brighton bypass. But the bill seems to have few backers, with the Aboriginal community already talking about a High Court challenge and the building and property industry's warning of serious repercussions. Anna Fromberg reports, and a warning for Indigenous viewers: this story may contain images of deceased people.
Tall ships brought them
Over the years, the relationship between the Tasmanian Aboriginal community and the state government has had its ups and downs.
This is 2011, you fellas. This is not 1969.
The Brighton bypass, constructed over a 40,000-year-old sacred site, saw relationships dip to a new low.
I never drive over the Brighton bypass bridge. I don't know any Aborigines who do, because the spirits of those old people are saying that this area here, we camped on it since the Ice Age melted, and that was 40,000 years ago.
This is only the second time Aboriginal Heritage Officer Aaron Everett has been back to the Jordan River Levee since the bypass opened.
Yeah, it's a bit of an eerie feeling here, isn't it?
An archaeologist hired by the state government found about 2.5 million relics buried a metre underground and described the levee as one of the oldest sites of human habitation in Australia. The government, which had already spent millions of dollars on the bypass, pressed ahead, spending an extra $12 million on a bridge over the artefacts.
I think that we had thought, well, the state government made a mistake. As long as they learn from it and preserve the Aboriginal relationship with our heritage and protect sites from here on in, okay, we'll consider that a loss, but we'll move on. Instead, what they've said is, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Michael Mansell is rallying the Aboriginal community for another fight. It's not over a new development, but new legislation to replace the Aboriginal Relics Act, which is nearly 40 years old. The aim of the new bill is to provide more effective protection and management of Aboriginal heritage and increase the involvement of the Aboriginal community in decision-making.
Instead, what they've come up with is a piece of legislation that in 2013 claims that Aboriginal rights to Aboriginal heritage are non-existent. This is going back to the pre-Mabo days where Aborigines had no rights.
According to Michael Mansell and Aaron Everett, the legislation is pro-development and the Heritage Minister has all the power.
We have no real say. It's basically all been taken away, handed to the Crown to decide, and the Minister, with how they wish to deal with our heritage if it's developments, roading or any kind of construction works that happen.
The proposed act sets up a new body called the Aboriginal Heritage Council, which the government says will be a single statewide voice for the Aboriginal community on heritage issues. It will be made up of 9 Aboriginal residents of Tasmania who are appointed by the Governor on recommendation from the Minister. While Michael Mansell welcomes the advisory body, he says it has little authority.
The Aboriginal body, no matter how much goodwill, no matter what effort they put into it, the Minister can say, thanks very much for the advice, I ignore it and I will go ahead and destroy it.
The council can sign off on Aboriginal management plans, but only if a developer agrees. If not, the minister decides. The body can also recommend the minister issue a stop work order on a development, but only if the Aboriginal heritage in question is on the new Aboriginal Heritage Register, and ultimately the minister is not bound by the advice.
Oh, well, in the end, yes, the minister will have the final say. We've gone through a consultation for a long period of time. With this last bill in particular, it's been over the last 2 years, but consultation has gone back since 1986.
Heritage expert Anne McConnell says there's major discrepancies between the new Aboriginal Heritage Council and the one that oversees the management of European heritage.
The Tasmanian Heritage Council is a statutory authority which, with all the powers to make decisions about the heritage under the Act, whereas the Aboriginal Heritage Council will only have really limited powers and very little decision-making power, and we actually don't understand why there is that discrepancy.
There's also anger over $2,500 fines for not disclosing the location of Aboriginal relics, which also apply to Aboriginal people, and a plan that will see the Aboriginal Heritage Council take responsibility for Aboriginal remains buried outside public cemeteries.
Aboriginal skeletal material is extremely important to Aboriginal people in Tasmania, and it's a very sensitive issue. The legislation proposes that the Aboriginal Heritage Council will have ownership of that material, and as we understand, that is just not acceptable to the Aboriginal community.
And it's almost bound to see the state government whipped into the High Court the moment this legislation comes into being, because this legislation on that score is racially discriminatory.
The government sought the help of former Premier Ray Groom to consult with the Aboriginal community on the new legislation. Mr Groom had already assessed the stolen generations claims and was therefore sensitive to the views of Aboriginal people.
I don't think Ray would have to be too happy about what's actually occurred with this neither, because the whole time that we put together with drawing up this new Act was basically thrown.
We understand the recommendations made by Mr Groom from the work that he did with the Tasmanian, with the TAC and Mr Mansell, and we certainly understand the work that they did and accepted many of those recommendations.
Tasmania's property and building industries aren't happy with the legislation either. Speaking on behalf of the Housing Industry Association, Master Builders and the Property Council, Mary Massina says there are too many grey areas around exemptions, management plans and what constitutes serious ground disturbances.
And that would be hideously disappointing if we are delivered a piece of legislation that intensifies the schism within the community when it comes to dealing with Aboriginal heritage. Because from the property industry's perspective, it's about, we want to see not only the cultural significance protected and upheld, but we also want to know what we can and can't do and where we can do it.
I've certainly done everything I can to make sure that we have a balanced approach. Balance when it comes to dealing with the protection of Aboriginal heritage in Tasmania and also certainty for developers in Tasmania.
The legislation is due to come before Parliament after the winter break in a couple of weeks. Brian Whiteman is yet to decide whether the final draft of the bill will be made public before being tabled.
It is a rather unique situation where if the government goes ahead without respect to the key stakeholders and tables that legislation, as soon as in a couple of weeks' time, then they will be faced with quite a considerable backlash.
We're going to have to be like the greenies in the forest. The only way that Aboriginal people can protect our heritage is to be on the spot, protest, get arrested, be dragged through the courts, put in jail if necessary, and then when the next event comes up, do exactly the same thing again.
In the meantime, the minister says his door is always open.
It is not a situation where everybody will get exactly what they want when it comes to such a sophisticated piece of legislation as this, but we certainly hope that people are respectful of the fact that we have undergone a significant consultation process, indeed involving Mr Groom, who is much respected by the Aboriginal community, and we hope when it comes to Parliament that respectful consultation, discussion and deliberation will continue.